Steam Next Fest is back again, so here's 10 demos I think you should check out if you're into strategy games. This video is sponsored by Instant Gaming. Check them out, the link in the description to get yourself some cheap games. Now, let's take a look at these demos. First up, would you believe it's an upcoming strategy game being published by Hooded Horse? What a shocker. Anyways, this is a game where you run your own blacksmithing shop and slowly build up your business by taking on contracts that you initially complete yourself, but eventually you can be assisted by NPC workers who'll run around doing the busy work whilst you focus on expanding the business. You're going to be doing everything from smelting your own ores into ingots, heating and shaping your metal, as well as woodworking and a whole lot more. As well as contracts, you can also set up your own blacksmithing shop front, letting NPCs browse your goods to make a little bit of extra cash and keep things running smoothly. If you're looking for a challenging, realistic simulation, this may not be for you, but if you want to run your own medieval blacksmiths and make it look all pretty, this is probably going to be right up your street. The demo is fairly straightforward with only a couple of basic products, but looking at the tech tree, you can unlock some seriously complex builds. Combine that with some good old-fashioned decoration and shop layout planning, and you have yourself a video game that people could easily spend far too much time playing. No release date for this one, just 2024, so keep an eye out for it if you'd like to open up a shop of your own. Now, I love complex city builders with stunning graphics as much as the next guy, but when it comes down to it, you're essentially building a logistical system where resources are produced and shipped around to meet demand. Why not strip everything out and make a game where the machine is laid bare, so to speak? This glance up the skirts of city building is Mini Settlers, and I can see myself really getting into this as one of those games I pick up to play for 15 minutes and look up to see that hours have passed and now I'm behind on work. Again, it looks really simple, but there's something about creating this production chain and actually having to make sure the chain doesn't get clogged so the supply can get to the demand without too many delays. So far, the game only goes to a pretty simple level, but judging from the Steam screenshots, it can get a whole lot crazier, and I personally can't wait for the headache. And if you're thinking because it looks so basic it means the game is so easy, guess again. Space management and pre-planning are essential to having a settlement that works, and something you did hours ago can easily screw yourself over what you're trying to accomplish now, leading to an entire rebuild of your whole system if you aren't careful. If you like games like Shapes or to an extent Factorio, Mini Settlers looks to be a great pickup when it drops in Q3 of this year. Time to be strategy game adjacent here and talk about the altars. Now, technically there is a strategic component, and that is the base building and time management. You only have so much energy to expend per day based on how much sleep you got the night before. Tell me about it. This starts out as normal fast work, but eventually it slows down once you're tired, and if you stay awake past the point of being tired, you'll collapse from exhaustion, and if this happens outside, you're pretty cooked, since once nighttime hits, the outside of this world reaches deadly levels of radiation. All of this work is to maintain and improve your mobile wheel-shaped base, being staffed by not only you, but yous. The demo only lets you do it once, but you'll be creating different versions of yourself by choosing branches from your own life to influence what your clone will be good at. The story here is really weird, really interesting, the setting is really sick, and the game visually looks great. Plus, that concept of creating clones of yourself is always a very interesting type of thing to experience. Very much looking forward to seeing more of this one later this year. Next up, Endzone 2. This is the sequel to the moderately acclaimed on Steam Endzone A World Apart. I never played the first one, but after this demo, I might have to give the second a bit more of a chance. It's your standard post-apocalyptic city builder where you need to create food, water, and shelter to keep your people alive and growing. Toss in some map exploration to collect knowledge of the new tech tree, and you have yourself a game. The post-apocalyptic vibe might not be for everyone, but if you're watching this when it's posted, this is basically a training program for like 10 years into the future, so it can't hurt to be prepared. Of course, being a post-apocalypse, there's a ton of hazards rolling through the maps like radiation, droughts, and powerful storms. Now, I didn't see mention of other people or raiders in the Steam page, so I don't know if that's a thing, but honestly, base building is always a lot more fun than base defense for me, so I won't be too mad if it wasn't included. The map for the demo is plenty large, and the Steam page says you can end up with multiple settlements in one game, and trading between them will be essential for your survival, making that balancing act a lot more complicated, but all the more satisfying to pull off correctly. Of course, the game also has a fresh coat of paint from the original, but there's also a bunch of new features, like more vehicles, expeditions, easier settler management, and an expanding map separated into zones. If you like city builders, then you know already if you're going to like this, so keep an eye out for it in Q3 of this year. Next up, we have Preserve, and this is arguably more of a puzzle game than strategy, but I'm going to count it anyway because it's a nice change of pace. As far as I could tell, this was just a high score based game where you try and earn as many points as possible by creating a thriving environment from barren tiles. Using rain, foliage, and animals, you can turn an area into a diverse habitat, expanding the map as you go and trying to get the highest score that you can. It's pretty relaxing and cozy, but also requires a lot of planning ahead if you really want to get as many points as possible. For example, you need to make sure your environments are big enough that they can house plenty of animals without taking up too much space that you have no room for anything else. Animals can either be mixed in the same space or combined 3 of the kind style for bonus points. Like I said, it's not really a strategy game and it's not all that challenging, but it's something nice to pick up and play for 20 minutes when you need a kind of mental reset. The art style is very cute and very satisfying, going from those desolate starting tiles to the final product, knowing you placed everything. If this sounds up your street, then give it a wishlist and keep your eyes peeled for Q3 of this year. Next I have Micropia. I've been seeing ads for this one all over the place, but this is the first time I've actually played it, and I have to say, I'm a pretty big fan of what I've played so far. I love me some production chain games like Anno and Factorio, and this has Factorio's DNA splashed all over its face. That's a little bit graphic, I'm moving on. You start off with a small colony of a handful of ants and slowly build yourself up using scrap metal and other resources strewn around the map. You can feed your queen to get her to produce larvae, which can then be grown into more workers, so you can harvest more materials and process more complex production chains for more complex materials. You can even combine 2 basic young workers into larger workers that have a much longer lifespan. I would think that these cycle of workers dying of old age would get annoying, but it actually forces you to be a lot more organized in your automation, so you always have workers ready to replace those that have passed away. I really enjoyed playing around with this one, and I could easily see it being one of those games that hours just disappear to without you even noticing. All we have for this one is 2024, so stick it on your wish list so you know exactly when it drops. So you've heard of city builders. Well, what about a city builder on the back of a giant space whale? Well, if you've been searching for that, then this game is for you. In Beyond the Stars, you're leading a group of explorers that settle on the back of said space whale, and are for some reason shocked when it does space whale things like travel across the universe at the speed of light, far from any chance of getting home. Now they're stuck, it's up to you to keep them going with all the staples of city building. You have to sell them food, water and shelter, as well as increasingly complex materials to fuel your progress. As well as that, you'll be changing the environment around you by terraforming to allow water to flow freely or to manage pollution spat out by your factories. I only got a taste of this in the demo I played so far, but it was pretty damn satisfying seeing the water flow and the landscape come back to life around it. The city building gameplay here is pretty simple. If you've played any other city builder, you know what you're in for. However, the hex-based placement system does make everything a teeny bit more complicated as far as getting everything to fit. Plus, the art style here is really cool, and even this tiny town that I made looks pretty nice in a board game come to life type of way. Another one with a 2024 release date, so keep your eyes and ears open for any updates later on this year. Next up we have Airborne Empire. So let me get this right. This is an open world RPG city builder where you control a flying airship and travel around the map meeting different characters and trying to reconnect the world to the sky since they've kind of had a falling out. Oh, and everyone is a bird. I think I got all that right. It sounds like something an AI would spit out, but I assure you this has the stank of human-made all over it, and I mean that in the best way possible. Fuck AI. Let's go through those buzzwords one by one. So the open world RPG part is you flying around the map to different locations and speaking to different people to uncover more story and unlock more upgrades for your airship. As you travel around, you'll be able to assign your workers to interact with various locations on the ground, such as forest to harvest wood, ore veins, and even ruins to explore for more loot and lore. There's even pirates that fly around, so eventually you'll need to build some defenses to keep your city safe and airborne. Speaking of which, the city building aspect. While I only got to place a few basic things in the demo, I really like the system and I can see it scaling really well as the game goes on. You have to manage the balance of your ship as well as the amount of weight it's able to support. You can build more propellers to increase your weight limit, but you'll still need to make sure that everything is spread out, otherwise you'll quickly tip over. And in my limited flight knowledge, that's normally not the best idea for prop-based crafts. From some of the Steam screenshots, it looks like you can make this city pretty massive, so I'd be very excited to get deeper into the building and make my own flying metropolis. Aside from the building your city, you'll also need to do classic tasks of housing your people and providing them with food and water to keep them alive. This is all collected from the ground as you fly, making both systems integrate really well with each other and rarely feel like you're compromising on one because you're taking part in the other. The story is okay so far. I'm not going to judge it too harshly since I was kind of speeding through these demos to try as many as I could, but it was alright, and I do want to find out why all these bird people stopped flying and if they'll be able to remedy that. This is an incredibly unique game and is dropping into early access in Q3 of this year, so not long to wait. If I was to list my non-story-based favourite games, I'd have to say that base building, automation, and tower defense would pretty much dominate my entire ranking. Tower Factory combines automation and base building with tower defense against increasingly large waves of enemies to create something that could easily eat up hours at a time. You start out with just your wizard tower and have to get to work gathering resources, starting off manually, but quickly becoming automated using gatherers and conveyor belts to get everything into your storage. You have to move fast though, as within minutes the waves of enemies will begin, and they won't really get much easier as your game progresses, especially at nighttime. You'll need to upgrade your production whilst also keeping an eye on the number of arriving enemies to make sure your towers are up to the job. However, because this is a video game in the year of our Lord 2024, there's also got to be some meta progression. After every run, you'll earn some currency, which can then be spent in the upgrade shop to unlock whole new buildings or upgrade existing ones, making future runs a little bit more manageable. The end goal of each run is to uncover the map using bonfires earned by killing enemies, to eventually track down where enemies are coming from and take it down by use of a light crystal. This can take some time as the maps tend to be fairly large in relation to how much space a bonfire reveals. As well as this, you'll also need to use these close to home to find more resources, as each tree and stone can only produce so much before they disappear, meaning you'll regularly need to move around your production to stay afloat. It's quite the juggling challenge and one that I for sure haven't mastered, but it's a lot of fun, either for a quick 20-minute run or spending hours and hours mastering every single aspect. If it looks like something you'd be interested in, then November of this year is the release window, so not too long to wait. And lastly, this one is in no way strategic, but I honestly couldn't not talk about it after playing it because just look at this. It's basically a classic Tony Hawk game, both in terms of the style and how the game plays. The controls are the exact same, so much so that I'd honestly worry about a legal case, but we can just gloss over that, since alongside doing sick tricks on various bike-related vehicles, you're also taking out various fleshy enemies to gain even more points. From the demo, it just seems like arcadey fun where you try to rack up the biggest score possible by getting massive combos of tricks, as well as kills, and it's pure chaotic fun. It may not be very strategic or deep, but you can't deny the style and raw creativity on display here. A truly bizarre game that I would happily play whilst taking a shit when it drops in August of this year. And those are the 10 demos that caught my eye from the Summer Next Fest, but of course I couldn't play everything. Let me know if you tried any great demos in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, and if you want more cool strategy games, then check out this video on the upcoming Sins of a Solar Empire 2.